I'm Dave Greenwood, and this is Overcoming Distractions. If you are an adult with ADHD, a busy professional, an entrepreneur, a high achiever, or just need some strategies to navigate your adult ADHD, you're in the right place. Who am I? I'm an entrepreneur with ADHD and the author of 2 books, Overcoming Distractions and Overcoming Burnout. I coach and mentor people just like you, and together we navigate the ups and downs of adult ADHD. From getting out of our own way to helping people just like you thrive in the workplace. That's what I do. Want more info on working with me? Hit overcomingdistractions.com. Ready? Let's get to today's podcast. All right, gang, we're back. It's Overcoming Distractions. As I think you know, you pushed the right button. I'm sure you did. And we're gonna dig right into this. This is something new to Overcoming Distractions. We've never done an episode on occupational therapy and ADHD, so I'm really excited to see what we come up with today. I have Jamie Cutino. She is a licensed occupational therapist. She's done 2 TEDx speeches. We can talk about that in a moment. An ADHD advocate, like many of us. And I'm going to put links to Jamie's TED Talks in the notes so you can get a glimpse of those. But we're going to talk about how occupational therapy can actually benefit us, help us thrive. We're going to get an understanding of OT, and then kind of the ways that it can benefit. So welcome, Jamie.
Thank you so much for having me, David. I have this newfound theory. I just thought it like 2 seconds ago, and it's that ADHDers, the more successful they become, the more humble they become. Because just talking to you briefly before this show, you're an incredibly accomplished person, but so very humble. And having a conversation with Jessica McCabe from the How to ADHD YouTube channel, she was the same way. So that's my newfound theory, is that the more accomplished you become, the more humble you become. Or maybe it's just the people that I choose to interact with, but that's my newfound theory. Hi, everyone.
Well, you know what? I don't profess to have any letters after my name or anything. I mean, if you've listened to me for any length of time, you know that I'm basically a welding school flunk out. So I just do what I got to do to keep the
But the
lights on,
but
you know?
But the letters after your name, I was just talking about this with my clients just a couple days ago. The letters after your name do not show how intelligent you are. I know some incredibly intelligent people who really struggled in school, and I know some real less intelligent people who have spectacular name or number letters after their name. So I think it's pretty awesome, your
I
story.
think we got them all in this community. So
Yeah.
so that's so let's dig right into this, because we got 260 some odd episodes. We talk a lot about how busy professionals, entrepreneurs, people in the C-suite, how to get things done, how to manage their ADHD, how to thrive, how to get out of their own way.
Mhm.
But we've never really talked about this. So for those people who may not know what occupational therapy is, or maybe think in terms of that professionals like yourself only like help people after surgery or things like that. So can you kind of
Mhm.
explain kind of what you do?
Yeah, so OTs work with anybody from newborn to late stages of life. And we have to have a pretty good understanding of, quite frankly, like any condition to be able to treat it. Um, I try so hard. I'm just like, let me try to make this tangible because OTs do so much. Really, what we do is we look at the person, we look at what is your goal, what is the deficit getting in the way, how can we overcome that deficit? Is really what it comes down to from a holistic approach.
Hmm, interesting. So as an adult with ADHD, how
Mhm.
would we recognize the need for occupational therapy? Are there some kind of signs that might kind of flagged somebody and said maybe an OT could help me with this?
So, I mean, it can range. I work with a lot of like overachieving women. So, if they're having a hard time managing their business, it could be a matter of, is your office set up in a way that meets your sensory needs? Do you have a chair that you're able to, and we were just talking about this before we hit record. Do you have a chair where you can sit comfortably so that you can actually focus for a long period of time? Are you understimulated? Do you need to simply light a candle or turn on some music to be able to get that sensory input? Are you completely overstimulated? And is that keeping you from doing the things that you really need to do? So if you have a hard time with meeting your sensory needs, that's one reason or one thing that an OT could be really, really awesome about. But also if you're just struggling in daily life, whether it is something as simple as I'm having a hard time managing this household on top of all of my other responsibilities, to, hey, I am an executive or I am a C-suite person. I have a business and many employees, and I don't know how the heck to create systems to get all the things done. So we do a lot.
Yeah, I know. I know for me that the optimal work environment is, I think, critical for myself. It is the chair. It's the desk where the desk might be in the room, the height of the desk, the what's
Hmm.
on the desk. I mean,
Yeah.
I remember I had an office downtown years ago when I was running my PR firm. And I was working out of my house early on after my son was born. And then I'm like, you know what, this is crazy. I need an office,
Yeah.
Um, and I'm like, all right, cool. We're going to outfit this really cool. So I went and I got this really expensive, like $300 office chair.
Uh-huh.
And I swear I needed back surgery after like a few weeks. It was
Oh
awful. It was
no.
awful. And I to this day now am sitting in basically a free chair, you
That,
know?
but it's comfortable, I'm assuming, because otherwise you wouldn't be sitting in it.
Yeah, it's worked for years. It's not glamorous, but yeah, I spent $300 on this chair and I adjusted it back and forth, up and down, and my back was killing me, killing me.
Yeah, and similar story here. I bought an office chair purposely because I'm like, okay, well, this feels kind of comfortable. It'll be good. And I really hated working in my office. And now the chair that I have behind me is so oversized, and I found it on Facebook Marketplace for like $80. I
Mm,
cleaned it and threw a cute blanket over it and called it a day. And I love it. I can sit in it for a long period of time and work. So I'm right there with you.
yeah, there's so many little things, and I know this may get into like podiatry or something, but I remember I had a car accident many years ago, like 30 plus years ago. Had all kinds of things. I broke my knee and my back, and I had like some pinch nerve and stuff like that. But anyways,
Mhm.
I had problems with my feet. So at the time, the guy's like, "Oh, we're gonna put these like orthotics in you," and the same thing. I mean, it basically turned. It just took my body to a grinding halt. It just from the feet up, and I don't think we realize the effect. And the point is that some of the small things we do have like a
Mhm.
major effect, whether it's negative or positive, right?
Absolutely. And so when you're talking about like that happening with your feet, OT treating everything, it's like, yeah, you might also want to go to an OT if you're dealing with not only ADHD, but also other conditions, because it's also often comorbid with, anxiety, depression, autism, autoimmune disorders, tics. I mean, it's oftentimes comorbid with things like that, which we can also treat deficits related to those disorders. But yeah, little things can absolutely derail or make your day. The visual clutter in your office. I see behind you, like you keep a very tidy space, and I'm gonna take a wild guess. It's because you can focus better when you have a tidy space.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, I grew up in basically a museum. My mother, just short of putting plastic on the sofa.
Uh-huh.
you
Yeah.
know, my
Yep.
mother really kept a very clean and organized home. So we grew up in that environment. And if there was clutter, then it was dealt with. But yeah, well, you don't see beyond the screen. you know, and sometimes that gets out of control. but it does, you bring up a good point. It it starts to make me crawl out of my skin. I can't
Yeah.
think, you know.
Yep.
Yeah, I can't think. And I just, every few weeks I just gotta blow this place up. Yeah. So
Yeah.
um would you I want to geek out a little bit here, and we
Yeah.
talked about this briefly. So um I know that occupational therapists also deal a lot with what they call the vestibular system, and maybe you can
Hmm.
explain that. But um, people, as you mentioned, the chair you have, and other
Hmm.
people maybe sitting differently, or other things they do to maybe either calm them or compensate, or what have you. So, can you kind of explain the vestibular system and ADHD, and maybe how that might affect certain people?
Absolutely. So the vestibular system being part of our senses is just another sense. And having ADHD, we process sensory stimulation different than a typical person. It doesn't mean that, the actual stimulus is different, but how your brain interprets that information is different.
Hmm.
So this can cause us to be either sensory seeking or sensory avoidant, and it can be different for different senses. So I'll try to make it a little bit more tangible. Myself, I am definitely sensory avoidant when it comes to sounds. There's a reason I have noise canceling headphones. If there is a repetitive sound in the background, even if it's like a fan or something, don't expect me to get anything done.
Yeah.
Very much sensory avoidant when it comes to sounds, but definitely sensory seeking when it comes to touch. And it can be something as simple as I need to have my feet in a foot hammock. Have you ever heard of those? A foot
No,
hammock? Okay.
no.
Go on an Amazon rabbit hole, go on look up foot hammocks, but can be really, really helpful for people who like work in an office or in a chair a lot of their day. Which is another way to have those sensory needs met. So looking at me, you wouldn't know. I don't have it up right now, but that someone could underneath be having their foot on a foot hammock going back and forth. So it really comes down to sensory processing. And when you have your sensory needs met, you can really be a lot more productive. So if you find yourself feeling very fidgety, if you find yourself feeling like I am just incredibly bored right now, if you get the feeling that you're bored, you're probably sensory seeking. Um, and you should move your body in some way, shape, or form to be able to have that need met, or have a candle on that smells really good so that you're getting something in that sensory, some type of sensory input. But that's really like foundations when I coach people is okay, what are you trying to achieve? And let's look at your environment. Are your sensory needs being met? Because if they're not, my friend, ain't crap going to be happening until that
Yeah.
happens.
The we just uh had a discussion with Mikey Goldman. He's the founder of the Weighted Pillow Quiet Mind.
Oh,
Um
wow.
yeah, so we all think about the weighted blanket, which I
Hmm.
think many of us either know or even have purchased.
Oh, yeah.
But he invented the weighted pillow.
Shut the
Um
front door. Okay, I'm
yeah.
writing this down because I am definitely going to be
Yeah.
buying one.
Yeah, and he did a lot of research. It kind of came out. You listen to the episode, but it came out of kind of COVID and feeling lonely, and having ADHD, and so it was this kind of an interesting invention. So
Yeah, and I'm
yeah,
thinking of even like I have a weighted blanket, but that thing is a pain in the butt to lug around because it's literally like 20 or 25 pounds. But if you have a weighted pillow, hey, you can go upstairs with it, you can go downstairs with it. It's not such a pain. I guess my lack of athleticism is showing right now because I don't want to drag that thing up and down the stairs.
well, no, and that's one thing we touched on is that,
Yeah,
yeah, that if you're traveling, you can't jam a 12, 15 pound weighted blanket into us.
no,
You need an extra suitcase. So, but
exactly. Yeah.
yeah, um, so does that, I guess my point in bringing that up is this, does that kind of fall in line with you kind of nurturing the vestibular system in a way? Is that
Vestibular system is how your body moves in space and like your interpretation of your body in space.
Hmm.
So a way to stimulate the vestibular system would be like going on a swing. It could be dancing. Actually just like up and movement around would
Hmm.
be stimulating the vestibular system, which is an amazing way to meet your sensory needs when you are feeling restless.
Hmm. My son used to, well, when he started learning how to swim, he was terrified of going underwater.
Hmm.
Then he went underwater, and we used to go on vacation and be like, he'd be underwater for like 2 minutes. Does that,
That's
is it the sound of the water or the, I just found it odd that he really found a cool space like underwater. I kept checking. I'm like, when's he coming up?
yeah.
And he's just kind of
I
hanging out there.
That is so interesting. I'd have to ask him because my brain's just like, okay, is it that when you're underwater, that it is that feeling of water, but it's also over your head? Like, is it the sensation on your head? Is it that it's quieter under the water? Um, I would have to ask him because
Mm,
I'm really, really curious of what part of that really helps. And that's another thing. You can have the same intervention for two different people and it's serving two different purposes too,
yeah, I could see that.
based off of what they're needing.
Yeah. So you mentioned a couple things. How else uh, can a occupational therapist help? Like a busy professional with ADHD, because that is the audience of this podcast. It's not kids.
Yep.
It's not teenagers. It's pretty much it's that busy executive. It's that entrepreneur, solopreneur. Somebody has a really demanding job. Um, has a couple kids in the mix. So what are some of the ways you see that occupational therapy can really help those types of individuals?
So I'm like categorizing it in my brain. For someone like an entrepreneur, putting systems in place in their business that make those tasks more accessible. And it could be as simple as how are you doing your marketing? And like, say you do your marketing on social media. Are you using a social media platform that feels very accessible to you? Are you trying to overcomplicate what could be a very simple process? For myself, we have a system where I can create one piece of social media, and with a few clicks, I'm posting to all the different platforms because quite frankly, I don't have the spoons and the energy to be doing it on all different platforms. And I also want to be when I'm paying my assistant, I want to be paying her for as let me think of the is like being as efficient as possible, right?
Yeah,
So it could be a matter of creating your systems in your business to where it makes it more accessible. It could be the project planner that you're using. Are you using a project planner that allows you to break tasks down so that it's actually more doable to do that task? For a high level executive, are you putting your meetings sporadically all throughout the day, or are you able to kind of group them so that your mornings you're able to focus on that pain in the butt task when your focus is the best, maybe after your ADHD meds have kicked in, and
mm,
then later on do your peopling, your meetings, so that you can go home and decompress for the day. So it can be a matter of the systems to actually do the things. It can be when you do the things, doing the hard tasks when you have the most energy. All of that goes into OT strategies.
what 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 like physically can you help somebody with? I know there's obviously physical therapy where a lot of that is helping somebody, post injury or post surgery or whatever type of event. But what are kind of the physical aspects of something you could help an ADHD or with?
The physical aspects,
Yeah.
other than the sensory input. I guess my brain goes to. So here's a question. What deficits are you thinking of in particular? My brain is going to other conditions that ADHDers also often have, like autoimmune disorders and chronic pain and chronic fatigue. Um, if you find yourself in situations like that, like chronic fatigue, it's going to be how can we conserve your energy to only doing the very important tasks? A lot of times we as ADHDers are really good at making an incredibly long to-do list, even though we have a very limited amount of energy, and giving the same importance to every single one and not
Yeah.
knowing where to get started. As far as if you have like other conditions where you have chronic pain. It can be the positioning. It can be, again, the chair that you're in. It could be, can we take your position and create, could it be done remotely? I guess there's so many different things that just
because
like,
because I know, and sorry, I'll bring this up to people because I can throw myself under the bus too, is
uh-huh.
that some of us are clumsy sometimes.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm like, it's like the phrase around this house. It's like, I couldn't have done that if you paid me $1 million. I couldn't have done that if I tried. Like I get
Yeah.
hooked on a drawer handle or something like that. It's just like,
Yep.
you know, is that an area that you can help somebody with?
Yeah, and that's something where we would more there's compensatory methods where it's just like, listen, I'm not going to really be able to make you less clumsy, and I say that myself too because I there's a reason why I don't wear white, because I'm probably going to have that shirt for about 3 days until I wear it for the first time, and I'm never going to be able to wear it again unless I can get the stain out because I'm
Yeah.
like a messy eater. But that's where we would more so do compensatory methods. If you find yourself getting snagged on your the handle on your dresser every single time. Maybe it's just a matter of, can we just change out those handles so that when you brush against it, it's not snagging you every single time.
Yeah.
So when it comes to things like feeling clumsy, that's where we would more so look at modifying the environment so that, quite frankly, it doesn't happen more often, because unless I find a magic wand, I won't be able to make somebody less clumsy. We can compensate with the environment though.
But that that's a great thought because I work with so many people one-on-one and they really want to they're desperate to change certain things like
Hmm.
the way they work or and and I'm of the while many of us do have to work in that 9 to 5 environment, so to
Hmm.
speak. We have to work in an office. Um, I'm of the philosophy of working with your brain, not against it, not fight,
1000%.
yeah, not fighting it. So you're right. So somebody, as you just mentioned, could say, all right, look, I'm clumsy. That's the way I am. Maybe I can slow down a little bit, but
Hmm.
you're right. The draw handle where I just catch myself on it 3 times a week, gotta go, you know?
Yep.
But I think
Yep.
you're right that we just gotta, this is the way I am, this is the way I operate. Let's protect myself in other ways, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think going decades and having the stigma that you're doing something wrong, of course, you're going to feel like you have to fit in the neurotypical box, but that's just not how our brain works. We have a neurodevelopmental disorder. It doesn't mean that we're not incredibly brilliant. I mean, obviously, I think the ADHDers are brilliant. I love working with them. They are the best problem solvers, the most creative people on the planet, but our brain simply works differently. And something as simple as having a hyper focus mode and a veg mode. I know for myself and a lot of my clients, we have like two modes, and that's okay. How can we really capitalize on the hyper focus mode? And how can we really capitalize on the veg mode? Because we do need the veg mode to be able to get into the hyper focus mode. But
Mm,
I absolutely encourage, if you're in that flow state, go with it. And even if you don't eat for like the 5 hours that you're in that flow state, just please make sure that you're eating enough
right,
after you get out of it.
right. Yeah. No, and I think that's an important lesson for many to have peace of mind with, is that
Yeah.
this is the way I work. Now, I can make an argument to say, I mean, if you're going to start work at 10 p.m. and work till 2 or 3 in the morning and expect to get back in the office, that's probably something you're going to have to work on. I mean, let's
Yeah.
be realistic, but
Yeah.
if I have so many people, and myself included, I get to 2 or 3 in the afternoon, and I'm like, if I try to do anything that has it requires any brain power, it
Hmm.
could take me 2 or 3 times as long
Yeah.
versus getting a fresh start in the morning and understanding that and having a little self-awareness.
Yeah. And it was fun when we were talking about, like, the time that I would be recording and seeing, like, you have your, if I'm remembering correctly, like, you had a few blocks, but they were all morning blocks, at least morning for my time over here in Colorado. But I thought that was really cool. I'm like, okay, well, we must have a similar like sleep wakes type of cycle where I'm the same way from like 10 or 11 until 2 or 3. That's like my prime. If I'm gonna take over the world, I'm gonna be doing it within that amount of time.
Yeah.
After 5 o'clock, don't ask me to do a lot, quite
Yeah.
frankly. That's when I'm gonna be doing my mindless things that unfortunately I have to do, like the dishes. I talk about hating the dishes quite often. Whenever I have to have an example of things that you hate but you have to
Yeah.
do, dishes always come up. But same way, I'm going to be doing all my focused work when my brain is its best, and that's going to be about an hour after I take my ADHD medication until like 3 p.m.
You know, I'll geek out again,
Hmm.
and but I highly recommend this for ADHDers who hate things like the dishes. I had a full dishwasher, pulled them out they were drying, and I didn't want to do it. And I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna actually set the timer and see how long this actually takes me. Because I do hate it. It's just
Uh-huh.
you looking at it and like, I don't want to get started on that, but it's in the way. I mean it literally, without breaking anything, it took me like maybe 60 to 90 seconds. It wasn't that long.
It's not long. And it's so funny you say that because it's so true. It's like one of the most dreaded tasks, but it really doesn't take long. Well, you know what? I'm going to be doing that now, David. Today I'm going to be setting that timer. So when I have to come back to that pain in the butt task, I can tell myself literally it's just 90
It's
seconds.
just like
I
last
can do
time,
it.
it didn't take me that long.
Yeah.
And think of the feeling of an empty dishwasher.
It does feel so good.
Yeah,
If only our brains released dopamine as we thought of the task we were going to complete, like a neurotypical's brain does. Like I joke around, I'm just like, knowing how a neurotypical brain works, man, they're really unimpressive. Why aren't
mm,
they doing more when your brain's literally releasing dopamine the second that you think about it?
right.
I'm not knocking any if any neurotypicals are listening, I love you, but I'm just joking with you. But yeah, it's fascinating. Just looking at all of the fundamental differences of the ADHD versus a typical brain.
Yeah, yeah. So, wrapping up, tell us a little bit about the TEDx talks that you did. What were they about?
My first TED Talk was about my journey with ADHD and really was like a way to show people that they're not crazy for the struggles that they're facing. And my second TED Talk, which was 363 days later, just shy of a year from each
Hmm,
other, was about how success is finding peace and not necessarily what you think success is, because I checked almost everything off of my bucket list. Like I have the supportive husband, I have the house, I have the two amazing rescue dogs, I graduating OT school, like I landed a six-figure job right out of school. Like I had everything that I had worked my butt off for, and look back and I'm like, why am I not happy? So really my talk originally was going to be about how to create achievement in your life. And it ended up being, listen, no matter what goal you set, as soon as you get it, you're going to be setting the next goal and it's never going to feel like enough. So how about we just enjoy the peace and the journey along the way? So those what the two talks were about, two very different points in my life, even though they were just shy of a year from each other.
hmm. What were there some kind of subtle messages in there as well about people can take away that because I think that is great that and I think we need to learn that we not many of us enjoy the journey sometimes, as rough as it
Yeah.
is, but I mean with a kind of some other things sprinkled in there that people can resonate with.
This is like every single part of your life. So just like take a second and think of that big goal that you want to achieve and the feeling you think you're going to have when you get it. Like envision it, embody it. I can promise you it's not going to feel like that. I can
Mm,
just promise you it's not going to. And you know this because if you look back at your life and you think, as soon as I get this goal, I'm going to be happy, how did you feel after? So let me think. Underlying, I would say apply it to every single part of your life. Um, Dissect every part of your life and why you were looking to achieve that goal. And take note of how you are feeling on the journey there. When you're stepping on the scale and you're working really hard to lose weight and you see that you only lost a quarter of a pound or you didn't feel anything, take it with stride and know that this is part of the journey. This it's just kind of what I tell myself now. Well, this is part of the journey. As an entrepreneur, as you know, things don't always go our way. A
Mm,
lot of times they really don't go our way.
yeah.
Okay, great. This is gonna make for a great chapter in my book one day. So look at what you are really looking to accomplish and know that it's not going to feel the way that you want it to. So stop waiting until that goal to start enjoy your life.
I think you're right. I think a consistent level of purpose and fulfillment is,
Hmm.
I think, the way we thrive best rather than trying to nail the huge goal every,
Yeah.
whatever period of time. Yeah. So,
Yeah. I
yeah.
mean, setting the goal is important because we need something to work towards, right? And it is that achievement that it gives us that, that little feeling of happiness. But like you said, it's more so just purpose. Every day waking up knowing you have a purpose. Even when things don't go my way, I know that my purpose is to create resources for every woman with ADHD so that she feels like she can work with her amazing brain. Knowing that that is my purpose, I can get out of bed every day and work my butt off to achieve that and have that. I'm trying to think of a better word, but just like a baseline happiness with
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. No, that's great. Cool. All right. How can people find you? Do you have a website for the OT?
Yeah, so I do ADHD or occupational therapy based coaching for women. You can find that on outsmartadhd.co, not
Mhm.
com. And I also have a podcast, Outsmart ADHD.
Oh, cool. All right. Awesome.
Yeah,
So we'll have that link in the notes here, the show notes as the podcasting world says. So
love it.
cool. Awesome. Thank you. This is something that we have not discussed here. So and obviously something that I know could benefit a lot of people. So thanks for sharing that.